the first idea that came to Andrew Wyeth about Christina's whirl happened on a scrap of paper or something, and he just got this scribbly little shape that is sort of the shape of Christina and the scribbly little shape of the house. And yeah, you can work with scribbly shapes. They're going to show you, and it doesn't have to be detailed or accurate or whatever, but just with scribbles of shapes, you can discover the relationships of things, and how they're going to look, their size relationships, and how they're going to align like within a rectangle. So that's really the easiest and best way to figure this thing out. Once we get our composition created, pretty much decided on how we want things placed, so we have that dynamic movement, then we can, this is helpful to make a vertical halfway down on the canvas or the surface you're working on, and on the corresponding vertical line on the reference, same thing horizontal, and that kind of helps you to gauge your space just a little bit better. You don't have to do that, but it's helpful. So I'm going to begin to sort of place these things in the vicinity of where I see them in the reference. And this doesn't need to be done in a detailed drawing. This just needs to be done very generally. And so the idea is, once you get the first one placed, then everything else relates to that. So what I'm watching here is I want to watch the edge here to here. I want to watch the relationship of this area in here. And I'm realizing that we're going for this dynamic corner to corner. So this one needs to be pretty much occupied in that space there. So I'll just make some preliminary lines here. And so that would be where the foot would go, and then the head would become about right here, and the muzzle would go about right here. See an angle there. That comes down a little bit more there. Angle there. Angle there. Angle here. Here, here, here. Don't need detail there, just the major angles of the major edges there. Okay, let's see what's going on there. Come up to here. That belly sort of does that, angles that way. This leg sort of angles this way. And let's see, we need this angle of the neck there. Need the angle there. The tilt of the neck sort of there. And that might be sufficient. This comes down a little bit more like that. Here, here. Now let's see, do I have that angle, those angles? Let's get this line of demarcation a little bit more there. Put a little bit more of an angle in here. And let's see. That pretty much places that one so I can deal with it. Let's make a little edit here, here. Because there's this angle parallels this one comes down a little bit more. This one parallels right there. That's a little bit better there. Okay, now it's probably good enough for the placement of that one. Now I can come over here to this one, and now what am I going for? We need to be able to place this in relationship to this, the same way as we see it there. Going to pull it a little bit closer to the edge here. Now remember, the placement can be either corner to corner or parallel to corner to corner. So the size of the thing, well, in relation to the line, it comes about right there, tilts down about right like that. Comes over the edge sort of like that, very boxy, and comes down about right like that. I want to give our hump back. The angle is more like that. Now, the alignment here, the alignment of where this comes here. Now I need to watch the space between there and there. Be sure that I have the longer space here, shorter space, this space shorter to here than it is there to there. I talked about that in video 1. So I'll just go ahead and let's see what we got here. Angle this way, angle that way. And let's see how that placement goes. Let's see, get a little bit more here. Maybe this comes down a little bit further. Let's see. Now, is that, yeah, that's parallel right in there. All right, now let's see. Placement of this one. Now we remember we have that one place aligned so that it goes corner to center here like that, and we find it up here very, very small, very tiny. Let's see, let's get the relationship, the spacing between this. Let's want that to about right in here to get that alignment. So I'm just going to kind of indicate here, make just a slight little indication of where that one would go right in there. Maybe not much more than that. Now, the environment. So that, all this stuff back here, I need to take a look at how the space divides itself. So I'm going to raise that up to about right in here, a little bit further than I see it in the photo. And it's kind of a horizontal stasis, like we talked about in video 1. Now this, I've got it a little bit higher than we have in the photograph there, but the problem there, I'm not going to do a whole lot of the environment placement here because the real composition of that is going to have to happen with the value, which I'm going to go to right now. Now, whether I'm going to use those clouds, I don't know. But we don't have a whole lot of shadow there, which makes it a little bit tricky to work. So, but we need a value structure that's going to reinforce this dynamic movement. So I'm going to start right back in here. Just what we're seeing there is that there is an overhead light. The sun is pretty much directly overhead, and I need to kind of throw in so where we cast shadow would be right in there. Light's pretty much overhead, which doesn't give us a lot of shadow, light and shadow to work with. And so what we're seeing here, because these trees are vertical, they're seeming to fall in shadow in the distance. I'm just going to kind of give us a little bit more of about this, very similar to the line that we see there, but going to carry that out because all that stuff seems to fall pretty much in shadow. And so I'm going to pull that on. Now here, that's a really ugly shape. So let's just make us up a better skyline there. All right. You know, this is This is no 10, which is very difficult in this one because, as I said before, we don't have a strong value relationship. But the value contrast is going to help reinforce either the stasis of the whole thing or the dynamics of it. Now, so this, I can allow the shadow area in here to kind of reinforce the stasis there, but I can work with this stuff down here. All these trees and stuff, let's just drop on those down and create, there's a little bit of pasture in there. And when I get here, what I find is that this guy is in head falls more in shadow there, back in there. So I'm just going to throw that like that and have that coming out. And then we have some foliage moving like this. And then we have moving down and picking up about right here. And we begin to feel a little bit of a value structure. Now I'm going to create some dynamic edges in here with those with the way I shape some trees, or maybe have a taller tree right here, or bush, or whatever that is, and maybe kind of counter a diagonal movement like that. Let's pull this on down in here. More shadow area in there, pulling it over, and I'm going to carry that a little bit further in that direction right there. Pull it over here, there. Now this would be stasis. This is reinforcing the horizontal in here. Then bring that on down here just a little bit. Now, all right, so this falls into shadow. This part right in here falls more into shadow. So that gets kind of linked. The dark of this green is going to get linked with the dark of the brown of the cow. And so I'm bringing that on down like that. Now up here, there's more light there. So you see what I'm doing there? I'm simply playing with that value. And then I get over here and I get follow through of the shadow value. I'm paying attention to that line there. Maybe pull that in a little bit more right in here. I may want to adjust that just a bit right there. Right, so now the linking of values, the linking of shadow areas can be kind of a little bit on the tricky side when you're dealing with that overhead light like that. But we have to keep that in mind too when we're placing, because the way we place those things also influences the placement of everything else. And so we're going to have bright light in here, but we see that this side of this cow is falling into more shadow. The back side is falling more in shadow. This is falling more in shadow right here, and more in shadow right here. And we have the little bits of lights and shadows on there, but we have to think in terms of that. Now we have a cast shadow right in here. So that shape of that shadow, we just look at it as a shape. We don't bother ourselves with whether it's the shape of a cow shadow or not. Now let me see, do I have something that we can work with there when we start placing color with a little bit of shadow area in here caused by the muscles. Let me see. Alright, so I think maybe that's probably a good enough value structure. Now what I want to check here before going on to the next step, I want to check to be sure that we have that dynamic movement going. So let's see. How is this aligned? Is this aligned? Now, what's causing our attention in there are color contrast, the difference in the color between this, and this, and the background and all of that, and value contrast. Isolation, this is the isolated images here, here and here, the isolation of the images, the difference in the color. But it's mainly that isolation of the color, the difference of the color of those cows against that pasture that's going to give the real dynamics. So this is just testing to see is the placement or is the alignment of these images where it needs to be, and in order to have that kind of dynamic movement that we set out for to begin with. We choose things because something appeals to us, and so to choose what it is specifically that appeals, then how can I make that? How can I place those images in my whatever format I'm working in for the most lively composition that I can have without having it to be too cluttered. And on the other hand, I don't want it to be boring. Be sure and view all of our quick tips. And while you're doing so, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell so you'll always get a notice when we produce a new quick tip, which is every week. And if you have a question, leave it in the comments section and we'll make a quick tip for you. Also, take a trip over to DianneMize.com where I have full-length lessons, downloads, DVDs, lots of other stuff there, some free stuff for you. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the newsletter, and that way you'll always be informed every time we do something new.